Hey guys, if you would like a super easy weeknight meal, then you can't go wrong with a pantry pasta. Pantry pastas are so quick and easy because they are made with things you probably have sitting in your pantry or fridge. If you're not already a subscriber, be sure to subscribe, hit that notification bell, and that way you won't miss any of my future recipes. Okay, let me show you how to make this delicious, creamy, sun-dried tomato pasta. I'm working with a 6.5 ounce jar of sun-dried tomatoes. So you can go ahead and transfer the sun-dried tomatoes into a blender. You can also use a food processor if that's easier for you. And then I just take the jar and fill it up with water and then add that into the blender. So that's about 3/4 cup of water, or you can just fill up the jar, whatever's easier. Now, if you don't have a jar of sun-dried tomatoes sitting in the pantry, this would also be great with a jar of pesto sauce. That would work too. And then you're also gonna add 2 cloves of garlic and a tablespoon of dried Italian seasoning. Now, if you don't have Italian seasoning sitting in the pantry, you could also use a tablespoon of dried oregano or a tablespoon of dried basil. That would work too. And then I also like to add a 1/4 cup of fresh parsley. If you don't have the fresh parsley, it's not a big deal, but if you do, it's great to throw in. Then you're just gonna whirl this up until a chunky paste forms. So don't worry, it's not gonna become completely smooth. You actually wanna keep it a little bit on the chunky side. And then you can set that aside. Then at this point, you can get your pasta going. So in a large stock pot, you want to add 1 pound of rigatoni. You could also use penne or any other kind of cut pasta you like. Okay, so now we're going to make our bechamel sauce. I love bechamel sauce because it can be the basis of so many great sauces, and chances are you always have butter, flour, and milk on hand. So it comes together super quick and it's easy to make. So we're first going to melt 4 tablespoons of unsalted butter. Once that's nice and foamy, you can go ahead and add the 3 tablespoons of all-purpose flour. You want to whisk this together and let it cook for at least a minute. This is going to really activate that flour and kind of get that flour taste out of this mixture. If you've ever tried to make bechamel sauce and it doesn't thicken, chances are you didn't do the 1-minute cooking time because that's what I find really makes the difference between a runny bechamel sauce and a creamy, thick bechamel sauce. So don't skip that step. And at this stage, we're going to add 2 cups of milk. It can be whole milk, 2%, whatever you have sitting in the fridge is fine. And then whisk that together until combined. And then we're also gonna add 1 garlic clove that has been minced, a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and some freshly cracked pepper. Now I know we already put garlic and seasoning in our sun-dried tomato paste, but this is a really important tip, especially if you're just learning to cook, and that is you really wanna make sure that you flavor each level of a recipe. So if you're making 2 components that will ultimately combine, make sure that you're seasoning both so that they both are really strong on their own. Don't rely on the seasoning of one to season the other. You'll be happier in the end because it'll be a lot more flavorful in the end. At this point, you can add your sun-dried tomato paste into the bechamel sauce. Just whisk it together until combined. Now at this stage, if you've taken the bechamel sauce a little too far and you find that it's too thick, you can go ahead and ladle in some of that hot pasta water to thin it out a bit. And it's also hot, so it's not gonna cool down the sauce that you're actually cooking. At this stage, we're gonna drain our pasta, and then you wanna place it back into the pot that you cooked the pasta in, because this is where we're gonna toss the pasta with the sauce. I like to add a handful or 2 of fresh spinach to the sauce, just because it's kind of creamy and decadent, and I like to just throw in a little nutrition. But if you don't have spinach, you could also use kale or Swiss chard. Really, any kind of power green would be great. And then you can just stir that into the sauce until your spinach is nice and wilted. Then go ahead and pour the sauce into the pasta, give it a toss, and then pour it into a large bowl. And then at this stage, I also like to just add some freshly grated Parmesan cheese, a little bit more fresh parsley, and I also like to top it with a little bit of red pepper flakes. If you would like to know some other quick and easy pasta dishes, then you can click this annotation here, and that will take you to a whole playlist of some of my favorite pasta recipes. All right, you guys, I'll see you over there.